Welcome, everyone, to this episode of PEPTalk, Productive Environment Podcast. I'm Andrea Anderson,
And I'm Barbara Hemphill.
and we're glad you've joined us today. So, our question for you today is on the screen. So, please get comfortable and get ready to take this in. And we would love for you to comment so we can share your comment on the screen during this discussion. So, our question for you is: are you overwhelmed and think hiring an assistant is the solution? We get that question a lot, Barbara. Let me remove that off the screen. We get that question a lot when we talk to people and they say, "Oh, I just need an assistant. I just need an assistant." And while that may be true, we recommend they do something else first. So, Barbara, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's a topic near and dear to my heart. In fact, I just talked to a prospect this morning, and one of the first questions I asked was, do you have an assistant? Because we're also interested when we're talking to prospects about whether they have one. Here's the fact. The truth is, and we're paid to tell people the truth. And the truth is that the same skill that is required to get someone organized is not the same skill that helps them stay organized. And I cannot tell you how many dozens, probably hundreds of times, people said, okay, I'm just going to get somebody to get me organized and help me stay that way. Well, that will never happen because so many times, I remember one time I had a client who was, I'd worked with him in 3 different companies, 2 banks and an insurance company. But the first time I went to work for him and I was looking in his office space and I opened up the file drawers and was just looking around and I looked at him, I said, "You've had 3 assistants, haven't you?" And he looked at me and he said, "How did you know?" And I said, "Because I saw 3 different filing systems. Every time a new assistant came, there was a new filing system that would start over." So the key is that before you hire an assistant, or if you're hiring an assistant at the same time, you need to put systems in place. And we use that acronym that we just love for system of saving you space, time, energy, and money. Every time you have to do something repeatedly. And one of the biggest ways that you increase your productivity as an entrepreneur is by having systems, having things as simple as email templates so that you're not writing the same emails over and over again. And certainly we're recording this around tax time, and there's a whole bunch of people that don't have their taxes in place now. But as we did in a previous podcast, is like, now is the time to put a system in place for next year so you don't have the same problems that you have this year.
And one of the challenges that I think that happens if someone does hire an assistant before having the systems in place. So one of the things that happens is the assistant might come in, and whether it's a virtual assistant or a physical assistant, and then it doesn't work. It doesn't work out. The system is, or the assistant is overwhelmed, and then the person that hired them might think, oh, well, they're not competent, they're not doing a good job, when it literally could have been solved with the system, having like you said, some templates in place, some processes, some procedures. Here's how we do things from A to B. It doesn't have to be a lot. You can grow to that, but starting with some basic systems, where to find information. One of the examples I love to give is Kathy Music, who is one of our certified productive environment specialists. Her business is called New Path Productivity. She worked for a company as an HR manager in the HR field. I'm not sure if I got the title correct, and she was leaving one company and going to another. And she put systems in place, documentation. This person's nickname is this. This person does this. Like, she literally documented every single thing that she thought the new person coming behind her might ask. So imagine doing that for your assistant. Like, think ahead. What might my assistant ask me? And put that in a document. I see Sherry. Let's see. Let me post this because this is a good example. She said, Sherry says, this is so timely for me. I'm in the process of setting up my CRM with SOPs, standard operating procedures, and workflows, developing programs, packages, and plans. And I'm looking at hiring an assistant. That's perfect. So documenting what you can in an SOP. And guys, it doesn't have to be complicated. You can start this in a Google Doc. You can open up a Google Doc or a Word doc or whatever it is that you're already using and just start documenting. And as you're working throughout the day, if things come up to you like, oh, I need to put that in the system, I need to put that in the SOP, and that will help you so much when the assistant arrives, and you'll set them up for success instead of them coming in and you're expecting them to just start doing things and they're like, I don't know what to do. So, and it will cut down on them calling and asking you. So what are your thoughts on that, Barbara? Because you've had many assistants through the years, and
Well, I have, and I actually early in my career, I had two part-time assistants. One was with me for 10 years, and one was with me for 7 years. And we had a standard operating procedures. Now I do it a whole lot differently than I did, but back then it was literally a Word document. It was a Word document that had every single thing. And of course, then everything was very paper oriented because we were actually mailing envelopes and putting on stamps and doing all that kind of thing. And at one point, I hired a consultant, a very high level consultant, came in, actually physically came to our office, and I showed him, and he looked at it, he said, I've been consulting business for 20 years. And he said, I have never seen a standard operating procedures like this, because there wasn't anything that you needed to know that wasn't in that document. So it's such a time saver for everybody, and it makes people do the skill that they're skilled to do. And in fact, with the two assistants, one of the things, they were very different. They were complementary. So in the standard operating procedures, it was like, what is the type of person that's going to be doing it for this? Because we all have different skills. And what's really important, I used to think, this is one of the really funny things. I used to think when I first started my business that I shouldn't delegate anything that I couldn't or wasn't willing to do myself. That is truly the dumbest philosophy ever. But it was like, I don't know, there was something in me that wanted to be responsible, wanted to be caring, didn't want to ask for too much. And so I was thinking that I shouldn't ask if I didn't have it figured out. Well, the truth of the matter is, there's things that I'm not going to be I don't have the skill to figure out those things. And Andrea, you and I are such a perfect example of that. We call each other peanut butter and jelly. And it's so true, because there are so many things where I can do a part of it, and then you do something else. And what's exciting about it is that you're both doing what you're skilled and good at doing. It isn't laborious for anybody else. So it's very, very important.
It really is. A couple of comments here. Kathy is commenting on what I had shared about what she did. So the transition is so much easier for everyone when you anticipate in advance the questions that could be asked or information that would be helpful. Absolutely. I mean, I remember, Barbara, you've heard so many horror stories of my previous thing that I did before this years ago. And I absolutely love my former boss now, but during the time it was very, very difficult. And it wouldn't matter where I was, like I could be out of town on vacation or whatever. If I saw her number come up on my phone, I would just cringe, because it was like, where is such and such? How do I do this? Why didn't you do this? Where can I find that? And I was like, oh my God. So if I had these systems back then, oh my gosh, my life would have been so much easier. So I implore you to create them for yourself, even if you're a solopreneur and you work alone, you're an entrepreneur. Barbara, you said nobody's really a solopreneur. We all have to have certain pieces of help. But even if you're working alone now, anticipate that you're going to have a team. Plan ahead to have a team. And I want to share some things. Let me share what Sherry had said, and then I'm going to share some things that we did with Ed's. Sherry says, I help my clients set up similar documentation for their families with their paper, digital, and financial stuff in case they are incapacitated or gone. That is so absolutely critical. Our certified productive environment specialists do that as well. And it is absolutely critical. And nobody wants to even think about the incapacitated or gone part. But it happens. And the other thing, if you want to put a positive spin on it, let's say you want to take 3 months off and go travel the world. Okay. So gone. I guess that counts as gone. That counts as gone. But one of the things I know um I think, Barbara, you and I have been working together for 18 years. It's really hard to believe that. But for a lot of those years, I felt like I had to do everything. Like I couldn't, I was, oh, we can't afford to hire an assistant. Oh, I gotta do it. And kind of like you just said, you felt like you should be doing it. So finally, when I was able to let go of some of that and say, okay, it is okay to ask for help. You say it's a sign of wisdom, not weakness, to ask for help. And I had various people through the years that I'd hired this virtual assistant and that virtual assistant. And Sherry says, yes, that counts as gone. Thank you. Um, but I realized I was making those mistakes with those VAs. I was making the mistakes of just expecting them to, well, they just should know what to do. They should help me. And so then when Ed's, who, if you guys, anybody that's in our world right now knows, she's like, we call her the wind beneath our wings. She's actually in the green room here, kind of handling things on the back end for us, even right here and right now. But one of the things that when she first came, which was several years ago, I would record little videos. I would record like a little Loom video or just whatever screencasting thing you have. And I still do that. Like if I need something, I would record it. I wouldn't just ask her to do it. I would record it, ask her to do it, and say, please document this, add this to our system so that somebody else could come in and do it if they needed to, or we could do it if she wasn't here.
Well, I think that's a good example too, Andrea, of something. One of the things that made it hard for me to do it is I am a collaborative person. I don't like to do things alone. I really, really, except for writing. I mean, like if I'm initial brain, but I like to do things with other people. And so the idea of starting that is like, I just do what I do. I don't even know. The idea was just kind of overwhelming of where to start.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things we say in PEI all the time is the question is, it's not what should I do, but what will I do? So I think one of the things that our certified productive environment specialists, the service that they provide that is incredibly helpful. First of all, it is getting rid of the clutter. And I want to back up and say that if you're thinking of hiring an assistant or you have an assistant that's not working very well, one of the things that you really need to do that will make a huge difference is literally clear up the physical clutter in your office. I can't explain why. I can just tell you from over 40 years in this industry that it will make a difference. So that's one thing. But the other thing is then to figure out how you will document what you do. So Andrea gave an example of doing that video. For some people, say, oh my God, I hate making videos. I would never do that. So part of the role, I love what CPSs do in the way of support. So it's, first of all, it's support for helping you, and then it's accountability. So nobody likes to do that. That's the reason we do productive environment days for companies, in which is a clutter clearing day, because nobody goes into work and says, oh, I'm going to clean out the files today. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if there isn't someone that's accountable, well, it's the same way as a quote solopreneur. I mean, how many solopreneurs go in and sit down at the desk and say, okay, today's the day I'm going to write down my policies and procedures? It's not likely to happen. But if you're working with somebody else, and it can be done virtually, it can be done. One of the other things, I just talked with a prospect this morning, and one of the things I always talk to people about is, what kind of a chunk of time are you willing to commit to this? Like, what fits with your personality and what fits with your ability? And so sometimes it's everything. One of my favorite things, we used to call it an 8-hour miracle. We quit doing that because people took the price and divided it by 8 hours and said it was too expensive. But I joked and said, sometimes what was called an 8-hour miracle, we got done in 6 hours. So I actually should have charged you more money because I gave you 2 hours of time.
That's true.
Didn't have before.
Yeah.
But one of the questions I ask is, what kind of a block of time do you want to work in? So sometimes, in this case, he said, okay, 4 hours. I can do 4 hours. Like, okay, that's good, because generally the longer time you put, the more you're going to get because you don't stop and start again. So we talked about that, I don't know, on one of our, we were talking about multitasking yesterday on one of the podcasts. It's like, so you're focused. But on the other hand, I do laser coaching, which is 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So I can have a 90-day contract, or CPS can have a 90-day contract with somebody, but then doing things in 15-minute increments. So the role that PEI plays is helping you, first of all, figure out what needs to be done, putting it in priorities. And then secondly, helping you figure out what you will do. And then once the systems are in place, then it's easier to hire somebody. And, that takes us back to what we've talked about often, the 3 levels of skill levels that are required for getting and staying organized. We call it methodology, mechanics, and maintenance. Methodology, Sherry mentioned, I think it was, that she was doing a CRM. And so with the CRM, methodology is, what CRM am I going to use? Because there's zillions of them. That's a very high level skill, and a CPS can help with that. And it might take 15 minutes, but it's a high level skill. And it's worth a lot of money. Mechanics is like, okay, what do I put in the CRM? Because if you don't put in the right information, you're not going to get out the right information. So our certified productive environment specialists, they do help with methodology and mechanics. Maintenance is, okay, now somebody has got to enter that information into the CRM, and we don't do that. That's where an assistant comes in.
That's right.
If you have the systems in place, whether it's the CRM or whether it's the system for your whole office, then you can hire somebody to help you. And frankly, virtually everybody needs, if you want to grow, if you have a company of wanting to grow $1 million company, you're not going to do it without an assistant, because you're going to be doing things that you shouldn't be doing. So getting yourself organized so that you can hire an assistant. Yes. A lot of people can't hire anybody because they're too disorganized to do it.
That's right. And we have clients who are embarrassed. They don't want an assistant to see. They don't want anybody to see what they're dealing with. And so they're holding back, and they're holding themselves back. So you mentioned a couple of things I want to touch on. One, you said one of the very first things that people can do is to start clearing out the obvious clutter. That's one of the very first assignments we give in our office transformation boot camp, is start clearing out what you clearly can see as trash, or, hair ties or bottle caps or whatever sitting around your desk. Go ahead.
I just talked to somebody this morning, and he was showing me his office, and he had the boxes from the technology that he had unpacked. And he said, it's been there for 3 weeks.
Yeah. There's an iPhone box, or this box, or that box, or a microphone box, or So look, if you're watching this, listening to this, look around you. Those are things you can do right away that will start making you feel better. We do the same thing in the digital space, and we recommend that too. If you're thinking about hiring somebody that could potentially manage your calendar or help you manage your email, that's start clearing the digital clutter. And we cover that in our digital transformation boot camp. And that's for people who we call our organizees. So you can go to productiveenvironment.com/webinar. And we've got an upcoming webinar that we're going to address those things. So that is one place for you to go. Barbara, you mentioned at the beginning that the same person that gets you organized and productive isn't necessarily and isn't usually the same person that will keep you organized and productive. So Barbara has mentioned a couple times our certified productive environment specialist. So if you are an organizer or would like to be, then certainly go to this website, becomeaspecialist.com, so you can learn how to do that. So really, the organizer, the certified productive environment specialist, is a bridge between you feeling overwhelmed, disconnected, disorganized. It's between you and having that assistant be able to come in and take the load off. If you just go straight to the assistant, you're both going to end up frustrated and burned out. If you put some organizational systems in place in the middle, either through one of our boot camps or working with a productive environment specialist, that's going to make that relationship better. It can make that a much more successful situation. So I just want to mention that. Let's see if we got a comments. All right, let's see. Sherry, thank you for all your activity all your participation on our show today. Sherry says, that is why I started this stage of my business journey. To hire an assistant and have time to grow my business, yes. So I can help more people. It is helping me clear the clutter of my processes. I love that. Or streamlining my processes so I can hand them over to someone and still have it done my way. Oh, beautifully said. Because if you don't do that, Sherry, um, have it done your way. If you don't document and set your assistant up for success, they're going to do it the way they learned to do it in other businesses, or their last client or whoever. They're going to do it their way. And then you may bump heads because you're like, oh, that's not my way. But they didn't know that wasn't your way. They came in and you said, hey, get me organized, or get me, get me, help me. And they just did it the way they knew. So if you like things done your way, then absolutely document them and train your new assistant.
And
So
Andrea, I think you made an interesting comment. You said, they don't know your way.
Mhm.
We find that a lot of our clients don't know their way. That's part of what the problem is,
They
because
don't have a way.
they don't have a way yet.
Yeah.
So some of our certified productive environment specialists started out not having a way. They got a way. They might have been coaches, or they've been teachers. They've been in the corporate world, and they were so excited that they found their way, and they realized how in their work experience there were so many people who didn't have a way. I mean, because let's face it, where do we get taught this? We don't get taught anywhere. And I talked to the prospect this week who was saying that he has a 4-year-old son. And I said, one of it, and works at home. It's a home office. And he was talking about his wife was complaining about the 4-year-old's clutter. And I said, well, in my book, Love It or Lose It, Living Clutter Free, we talk about circumstantial clutter. Well, when you have a 4-year-old, you're going to have circumstantial clutter. That's just the way it is. However, you're also responsible for role modeling it for your children. And I remember when I first started organizing, somebody would complain about their kids' clutter. I would go into houses, right? And so there would be clutter, and they would always, oh, this is my kids' clutter. And I'd say, let's go back and look at your office. And I said, what right do you have to tell your children to clean up when you haven't? Well, the same thing. I just had an experience in a law firm not long ago where the boss had lots of clutter and didn't use the systems and stuff. And his employees really had lost respect over it, because well, he's the one who messes up the system. So as leaders, it is our responsibility to be organized as a role model for other people, because people do pay attention to what we do.
They sure do. In fact, Sherry said, oh, I just wanted Barbara to know that when I started my professional organizing journey, her book was the first one I read.
I love it. That's great. Taming the Paper Tiger. There's so many, and I can't tell you how many people I'll be introduced somewhere, and I'll be introduced as Barbara Hemphill, and they won't know what the name is. And then the person introducing me will say, oh, she wrote Taming the Paper Tiger, and say, oh, I have that book.
Yeah.
Sometimes I say it, I'll say, I bet you haven't read it, because there are so many people have bought it with the intention of reading it. And if they'd read it, would have been able to do it. But it's that accountability thing.
Oh.
And it's also, my mother used to say, many hands make light work. It's so much easier to do it with other people. And this is an investment. It is not an expense. To put processes in place is an investment in yourself, but more importantly, it's an investment in your business. I talked with someone yesterday who sells franchises. And I think through the years, I've had some clients who were franchise owners. And it always fascinated me that many of those franchises they have a lot of systems, but most of them don't have anything in place about how the owner organizes their office. It's like, wow, isn't that interesting? Because if weren't taught anywhere, we certainly don't learn in school, unfortunately. And I was blessed. I'm not naturally organized, but my mother and father were. And so I grew up in that kind of an environment.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're still going to start wrapping up here in a minute. So guys, if you have comments, go ahead and pop them in. And I want to just put this link up again to productiveenvironment.com/webinar. Now, I said that's for the organizee. It's also for the organizer. We have many people who come through to watch the webinar and even join our boot camps to learn different ways of doing things, and then also deciding, wow, this is something I would like to add to my existing services. So be sure to check that out, organizers and organizees. And let's see, Sherry said, I checked it out of the library, read it from cover to cover, and then when I could afford it, I bought it. Oh, I love that.
I
Sherry,
love
thank
it.
you so
Well,
much.
welcome, Sherry. So good to see you.
Thank you for sharing that. Barbara, I want to bring up, if you're ready for it, I would like to bring up a picture. Do you want me to just bring up the picture and then you
Yeah,
respond
sure.
to it? How
Yeah,
about we do
yeah,
that?
just bring up the picture.
Let me see if I can find it. Eds, could you put, I think it disappeared. Oh, there she, hold on. The picture is gone from my screen, from my little thing.
Well, I'm
So
glad it happens to be
yeah,
all the
it appeared. It's been there. There it is. There it is. There it is. It's back. Okay. So Barbara, what in the world is this?
Well, I've always wanted my license plate to be something that would make people ask questions. And for years, my license plate said less paper, because I'm passionate that everybody needs to have less paper, but I don't think paperless is possible for most individuals and even some companies these days. But then I got a new car and I love change and I wanted a new license plate. So I went to the DMV with an index card. Those of you who've been around me a long time know that I'm always carrying index cards. And I had an index card with a list of all the potential license plate names that I could have. And it was a funny experience because I walked up there and there were two clerks there. One of them was an older gentleman who looked like, my husband gave me this phrase when he worked in government. He said it looked like he was counting the months, days, hours, and coffee breaks until retirement. And that's kind of what he looked like. And the other person was a young woman who was just very interactive and whatever. I'm praying, okay, God, please give me this young woman to help me. Well, he did. And I went up there. And so I handed her the index card. She's, oh, I love doing this. And I handed her the index card with all the names on it. And one of the names was Hopeful, F-U-L. And she said, oh, well, that name is gone. And then she printed out something from the printer. And she said, I don't know if you like this, but here's one. And it was Hopeful. And I said, I love it because I'm a fool for Jesus. And HOPE stands for Help Others Pursue Entrepreneurship. And that's something that Andrea created long ago. And it's like, yes, because when I first started my business, I said I wanted hope. She gives others hope to be on my tombstone. And because I did, I mean, when you help people get organized, you do give them hope. You can see it in their body language, in their body, and you can see it in their voice. And so that was really what I wanted. Well, then when we started with entrepreneurs, it's like entrepreneurs are giving their clients hope, but our consultants are people who have been frustrated. Either they haven't had a career and have been looking for one, or they've been frustrated in their career and have always wanted to be an entrepreneur, or maybe they already are some kind of a coach but don't have as many clients as they want. And so they can do what we do. So it's help others pursue entrepreneurship. And we've done that for hundreds of people, hundreds of consultants around the country. I started training in 1998. We just do it live. I'm looking at a picture right now. There were 18 people in San Diego, California that became trained. Many of them now are off and running businesses and very happy. I still stay in touch with a lot of them, even though they don't no longer need to be in our program because they're okay. Then a couple of months ago, I looked at the word hope and realized it also stands for help others pursue eternity. And this world is not our home. A number of years ago, I learned that my name, Barbara, meant stranger. And I didn't like that because I didn't want to be a stranger. And then one of my business's coaches said, you are a stranger because this world is not your home. Your heaven is your heavenly home. And I realized, and now as we look at with this, the eclipse that's coming up and all the things that have been happening in the news and political, there are so many people that are so discouraged. And so the idea now is to give people hope. And that's what we've taken it to. So we love to help entrepreneurs because we know that entrepreneurs can help people have hope for their office, for their life, and for eternity.
That's right. Thank you, Barbara. And we'll end with Kathy's comment because I think it wraps it up nicely as well. We all have different strengths. Play to yours and let others play to theirs. Everyone will be happier.
Amen. I love it.
Amen to
Together
that.
we are better. That's a principle of PEI forever is together we are better. And that's really what this is all about.
Right. Thank you for joining us. See you later.